Yeah?
Yes,
I'll make a start. Thank you. I'll make a start then. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Regeneration and Sustainable Development Scrutiny Committee on this lovely morning of Friday, the 25th of February, 2022. Can I just welcome Cleona, a new member to the Democratic Services, who's here today to assist Charlotte, and I believe she may be taking over going forward for this particular meeting. So you're welcome, Cleona. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
No worries. Can I just make you all aware of today's meeting will be recorded? Can I also welcome any members of the public and the press to today's meeting? Can I kindly ask you to observe the meeting only and not speak or participate? Can I please remind you all to switch your phones to silent for the duration of the meeting? Can I refer you to the protocols for remote meetings which have been previously circulated? Namely, your microphone should be switched to mute unless you are speaking. Should you wish to ask a question or make a comment, can you please indicate via the chat function or by raising your electronic hand? I will assume that you have all read the paperwork before us today prior to the meeting. Please only use the chat function to indicate if you wish to speak as an alternative to the electronic hand feature or to raise any technical issues. When asking a question, can you please indicate which page number you are referring to? The first item on the agenda today is to do a roll call. I am Councillor Steve Hunt, the Chair, and I am here this morning. I will now call on Charlotte, the Democratic Service Officer, to take the roll call, please.
Thanks, Chair. I will mark you as present. Councillor Rachel Taylor.
Present.
Councillor, apologies, I've had apologies from Councillor Dean Causey. Councillor Chris Jones.
Present, Chloe.
Hugh James.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Sheila Penry.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Sean Pacey.
Present.
Then we've also had apologies from Councillor Cypher Harmon. Councillor Nigel Hunt.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Scott Bamsey. Councillor Jamie Evans.
Presennol, diolch, Charlotte.
Councillor Simon Niall.
I'm here, Charlotte, thanks.
And then if I move to Cabinet members, Councillor Annette Wingrave.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Leanne Jones.
Present, Charlotte.
If I move to officers as well, Councillor Simon, not Councillor, Simon Brennan.
Thought I'd been promoted then, Charlotte. Yeah, present.
Demoted.
Andrew Collins.
Present.
Mary Morris.
Present, Charlotte.
Amy Davis.
Present.
Donna May.
Present.
I missed anyone at all from today's attendance? Anyone that's participating?
Nigel got his hand up. Nigel, would you want to come in?
Yeah, can I offer apologies for Scott Bamsey? He's had to go to work this morning, so he's missing a meeting.
Yeah, of course, that's not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
There we are then, Chair. That's the attendance complete.
Thank you, Charlotte. Next item is a Chair's announcement. We have one item on our scrutiny agenda today. We'll be looking at to scrutinise, which is the Global Centre of Rail Excellence Progress Update. And we have chosen to scrutinise agenda items 7, 8, 9, and 12 and 15 are on the private reports. So those are the Cabinet Board agenda items we've decided to scrutinise this morning. I have asked members if there was any other items they wanted to scrutinise, and they have said no. So next item is declarations of interest. So can I ask members to please indicate whether you have any declaration in relationship to the items that we have chosen to scrutinise, please. I see no hands raised, therefore we have no declarations of interest. I'll take you to item 4 now, which is the minutes of the previous meetings. There are 2 sets of minutes included on the agenda for approval this morning. So I'll take you to the 3rd of December 2021. Can I ask any members if they have any comments on the accuracy of the minutes or dated the 3rd of December, please? I see none. So can I have somebody to propose and somebody to second that that set of minutes are a true record, please?
I move, Chair.
Do you get that, Charlotte? Both?
Yes, Chair, got that.
Yeah. And the same 14th of January 2022. Can I also ask, has anybody got any issues on the accuracy of the minutes for the 14th of January 2022 first, please? I see none. So can I have a proposer and seconder for these minutes as well?
Move, Chair.
I'll move. Yeah, move.
Got that, Charlotte? Yeah.
Yeah, Chair.
Okay. There we are. That will take us on to the scrutiny agenda item, the Global Centre of Rail Excellence Progress Update. This is a progress report of the Global Rail Excellence we have asked as part of our Forward Work Programme workshop. So I will now hand over to Kerry Morris, the reporting officer for this update. I believe it's yours, Kerry, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Thanks, Chair. Very briefly, obviously, I won't repeat the report in any significant detail, but this report, Chair, was requested by members and provides sort of a brief update in terms of where we've got in terms of bringing forward the GCRE development. This, of course, followed the conditional approval of outline plan permission that was granted back in the 27th of July of last year. And members will be aware it's a significant project. It represents a capital investment of circa 157 million, with the potential creation of up to 200 jobs. The report sort of touches, Chair, on the phasing that's likely to come forward. The opening of the 4.5 kilometre test track is scheduled at 2023. The opening of the 6.9 kilometre test track, which is for the rolling stock, that's scheduled for opening on 2024, and the addition then of the stabling facilities and research facilities that comes online in 2025. As far as the current position goes, we're in phase sort of 1A, if you like. A project delivery group is now well established and meets on a fortnightly basis, whereby planning officers and indeed our internal experts are involved in discussions with the consultants and the agents that are representing the developers, and with a focus, Chair, on discharging a number of planning conditions so that work can commence on site. Just a few brief maybe items to flag for members. In terms of what is coming forward in this particular phase, we're looking at construction of the storage sidings by the end of this year. There's going to be a limited amount of demolition of existing structures that are on the existing washery building, plus the removal of the existing track bed. There's going to be some earthworks required in terms of both creating the profile for the sidings and indeed ensuring that there's appropriate drainage in place. And obviously there's ecological mitigation as well, which is required as part of those conditions. The report does set out sort of some bullet points in terms of some of the key elements of work undertaken to date and what's coming up over the next sort of 12 months. I won't go through that in any detail, Chair, but it's just at this point where we're sort of expecting the first reserve matters and planning condition submissions coming in next month and into early April. So that's all I wish to sort of summarise, Chair, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you for that, Kerry, that brief update. There was indications at pre-briefing, so I'll take them in the order that they asked their questions. So, Councillor Hugh James first then, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. This is a very interesting report, Kerry. I got several questions. As you obviously know, I'm a railway buff, always have been, always will be. And I'm sure my colleagues here as well, and Nigel down there in Upper Avon's the same. My question to you, Kerry, is it's a massive investment. It's good news for us. It's good news for jobs. But my question really is, what we're going to get out of it even further? And I would suggest it could be linked to the report. I submitted a report to Dave Griffiths a short time ago about extending the railway lines. And I think, as my colleagues have said here, this is a golden opportunity to have a proper rail infrastructure in Neath Talbot and stretching. And it stands out that the two valley lines, which the chairman lives at the top there, I think it should attract not just freight traffic, it will do, it should attract passenger trains as well. And it might not be seen to be, linked to that Valley project, but I would suggest that one of the items on the agenda, I was talking to one of the senior professors the other day at Swansea University, and they would love to see a rail link linking those valleys and linking right down to Swansea. And as my colleagues have said, this is a golden opportunity to get something out of this. And the interesting part is, Kerry, they do say in the report, and you've got it in your report as well, that, Transport for Wales, for example, and they'll benefit from this with new trains and new ideas. And I think this is a chance we must not miss.
Thank you, Kerry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor James. Yeah, you're right. I mean, as this is, this is a rail-focused development. Clearly there are sort of significant opportunities, I think, and benefits that could come from this in sort of the wider picture, if you like. It's probably also worth noting that the continued development and expansion of the rail infrastructure is something that's very much supported within Future Wales, which is the National Development Plan for the Welsh Government, of course. And what essentially this GCRE development does is it provides for a permanent use of the line, of course. So therefore it sort of safeguards it for future generations. Now, I've no doubt that that there are it certainly benefits Transport for Wales and what they're trying to achieve in terms of the bigger picture. And I think if there was going to be sort of future consideration for expanding the use of the line, not only to freight but also to passengers, I think obviously a suitable business case would need to be put together for that. And certainly that certainly could be identified going forward, because, as I say, this development, because it's such of significance, it clearly can act as a catalyst, I think. And I've no doubt that further investigation, further discussions will be taking place as part of the agenda that's been discussed in terms of bringing forward sort of the regional transport solution that Dave Griffiths and colleagues are involved in primarily. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion around the South Wales Metro, so that could be very much linked with the spin-offs that could come as a consequence of this significant development. So I agree, Councillor James. I think whilst there's not there's nothing sort of definitive that I can offer at this stage, but what this development clearly does is present some significant opportunities should the business case be developed in terms of the passenger usage. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Kerry.
Okay, thank you, Councillor James. Next, Councillor Nigel Hunt, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair, and thanks, Kerry, for the report. I'd like to echo really what Councillor James has said. I think it's a golden opportunity for the Dwellais Valley. This is a significant investment. I think that really there's some irony in some of the wording in here. It says like the development will also be integral in supporting recovery post-COVID. The UK government have emphasised the importance of infrastructure spending to kickstart the economy and ensure long-term economic recovery. Well, I kind of agree with that, but there's a bit of irony if this is only going to be a test track. I would really like to see areas like what the Chair lives in, Seven Sisters, Crynant and beyond, Banwen, and Neath itself, and Port Talbot, of course, and South Wales. We'd love to see a Western Valley being connected. We've got we've got at least 6 valleys in Neath Talbot. We don't have a single train station in them. In Port Talbot Parkway, which is close to my home, you either go to Bridgend or you go to Neath, and beyond, of course, but you can't go anywhere else. And the same in Neath, you either go to Swansea or you go to Port Talbot. You can't go up, you can't go to Neath, where at the Neath Valley, you can't go to the Swansea Valley, etc. So, and I know that Councillor Jamie Evans has mentioned the Metro, as have you, Kerry. And of course, this could be the catalyst, this could be the stimulant And what would be really interesting for me if we were able to secure a passenger line up the Dwylais Valley is, what would it do for that valley? Would it if it was connected, would it really regenerate that valley? Because I do business in the lower Rhondda valleys, and they're prospering, but they've all got they've got a metro a massive Southwest metro going on. So I'd like us to see us playing hardball here and really pushing for assurances that we can have passenger railway lines, hopefully from Neath station, I would like to say. But yeah, thanks, Kerry.
Thank you, Nigel. I think there's lots of statements there, Kerry. I don't know if you want to reply briefly, but up to you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree with the points made by, as I say, both Councillor James and Councillor Hunt. I mean, I think, clearly the report that's been presented to members this morning understandably focuses on this sort of one GCRE significant development, but I think we're all on the same page here. I think clearly this could act as a catalyst, and I've no doubt that the conversations that are going on in terms of the regional metro, as I said, Future Wales is very much all about sustainable travel, and identifies the metros both in southwest and indeed southeast Wales. So clearly there's an agenda being pushed at the national level to get these schemes up and off the ground. And as I said, the GCRE is can be viewed very much as a catalyst, to underpin that future development.
Thank you, Kerry. Councillor Jamie Evans, then, please.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Yes, thank you very much for the report, Kerry. And again, to echo what Councillor James and Councillor Hunt have said, it's quite ironic, really, that Centre for Global Rail Excellence is in one of the most poorly connected areas of the country in terms of rail infrastructure. We have not had our fair share of rail spending from the UK government after they've only partially devolved it. We're missing out on £5 billion as a Barnet consequential for High Speed 2. Scotland and Northern Ireland between them are getting over £7 billion, but Wales has been denied £5 billion by the UK government. Just another example of how we are treated with such little respect by Westminster and the British state, but I'm not going to get into that. My question is really, we've heard mentioned the Swansea Bay and Western Valleys Metro. How can we as a council ensure that these proposals are taken forward? I know it was in the Plaid Cymru manifesto in the Senedd election. Now that we've got the cooperation agreement between Plaid Cymru and the Welsh Labour government, is there a way that we can lobby the Welsh government to ensure that it's on their agenda? Is there a way that we can lobby the UK government to try and get some semblance of a fair funding outcome for Wales? I just want to know what more we as a council can do, because it's all well and good having this global centre of rail excellence, but if it's up in the Dwylais Valley where you can't get to by train, then it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. And if we're talking about a climate emergency, we want to get people out of their cars, we want to get them onto public transport. If you can't get there by train, be it testing the trains, there just doesn't seem to be much joined up thinking in the infrastructure of this project. Whereas I'm grateful it's happening, there just needs to be so much more work done around it. And I appreciate that it's not solely a council problem, that this needs government action, Welsh and UK. It needs action from public transport providers. But what more as a council can we do to better integrate our valleys with our towns and our cities? Because it's not just going to be people from the Dwylais Valley that are working here. We're going to attract people from Cardiff, from Neath, from Swansea, from much further afield, and they won't be able to get to the rail testing centre by rail, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. So yeah, sorry for the long question, but I'd be grateful to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jamie. Kerry, before I come to you, I'm going to go to the Cabinet member, because there was a lot of points in there about lobbying, and she would be best placed. So I'll go to Councillor Annette Wingriff first, and then I'll come back to you, Kerry, for some of the other points. Annette, please.
Wait a minute, I don't know if you can see my screen. Can you see me on the screen?
Yes.
Can't see myself.
Yes.
Okay. Right. First of all, I have a seat on the Untitled Regeneration group along with the leader. Local MS is on there. The MP for Neath is on there as well. And we are, although there's a lot of information that we cannot release because it's a very early critical stage, and we can't give away, too much information. We do constantly ask about the track, the mineral track that goes up there. And it is part of the plan. I can't go into detail, but it's part of the plan, because at the end of the day, this is going to bring a huge range of jobs and skills will be needed for this sort of work. And these people will come all from the area to the centre for it. So, we are pushing for it. Our colleagues from Powys are doing the same as well, because they obviously want, not only do they want their people to come into our area, they want our people from further down Neath way to come up to their area as well, because, there's lots of things incorporated in this. So that we are pushing in the background, isn't it? We've, allowing to just go ahead with this. We are there at every meeting and we are pushing for these things that you all want. So I just wanted to be assured that there is somebody there on your side and we won't let it go. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. Kerry, back to you for the other points that Jamie has raised.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I mean, the only thing I would perhaps add, and members will of course be aware of the corporate joint committees that have been set up. The two elements, or two of the many elements that the CDHC will have to deal with and address is obviously the bringing forward of the strategic development plan, but also the regional transport strategy. So there's going to be elements that are being discussed at that sort of more strategic level that will come forward in the next few years. In parallel and coupled with that, of course, we've got the review of our LDP coming forward, and it'll be, of course, for the new administration to steer that process forward. With the adoption aiming to be around, I think, 2026, 25, 26. So there's a lot of strategic work ahead of us in terms of the planning function and the transport function. We need to ensure that those strategic documents are aligned, which then will hopefully then facilitate, and delivery on the ground that ultimately, the discussions that Councillor Wingrave has mentioned will then come to fruition. So it's making sure that it, as going back to Councillor Evans's question, it's making sure that everything is joined up and the collaborative working is ongoing, so that ultimately we can get some progress on the ground. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kerry. All right, Jamie. Okay, Councillor Sheila Penry then, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Kerry, and thank you for this report. I'm going on to page 51. Members was asked for the land, the Metal Box Millen Road, for camping and caravan, but it also states that over the bridge was difficulty. So, in which way was that? Because I thought down there would have been an ideal place for caravans and camping.
Does this form part of the Global Rail of Excellence report,
yes.
Sheila, or you?
No, it is.
I think you've gone on to another report.
Sorry,
I'm not sure, Kerry. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's part of my report, Chair.
No, that it isn't. I think it was one of the other agenda.
I do apologise, Chair.
That's all right, Sheila. That's fine. No worries. There we are. Councillor Simon Oyle, then, please.
Thanks, Steve. I don't usually speak or say an awful lot, but Councillor Hunt and a few others have mentioned about regenerating the Dillys Valley and things like that. And I think it just would be remiss of me if I didn't put my hand up and say about the Neath Valley and Neath particularly, and any discussions we're having about the valley lines and things like that. Obviously, bear in mind, obviously, I know Kerry and Simon, that we've talked about it before, but if you can just add in the Neath Valley as well, please. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Simon. Anybody else got anything now before I come in? I don't see no hands. Okay. I think a lot of the members have asked valid questions to you, Kerry, and you know, I'm under no illusion how stages work. As a member of the planning committee, I've sat on this item. I've been working on it with as a resident, as a local member, and as chair of Regeneration. I probably been with this project since it became an idea to get to where it is today. And it is an exciting project, but as a lot of the members have said, it really does need to deliver for the communities that it is working from and the wider communities, really. There is a golden opportunity here, but I just wanted to clarify a few points, because this project, as far as I know, is now up to 250 million and heading towards the 300 million. And I'm well aware when Annette, our cabinet member, mentions jobs, the only jobs that this development is going to deliver on currently would probably be the construction jobs that hopefully will be all local businesses. As far as the jobs go, for the specific jobs, it has already been highlighted. There's nobody qualified in the whole of Wales to take up any positions in that particular forum. They haven't got the skills. Now, in the recent seminar and other meetings, I've raised it with Karen Jones, our chief exec, and cabinet members about training. We need to start now. If this project is going to take up to 5 years, perhaps, or longer, then if we train those in the skills that are needed to take up the posts, then we may be able to deliver local jobs. But currently, we're going to be very lucky if we get one job locally, except depending on the type of development that goes forward in the future. Now, if there's going to be hospitality and other plans, as you said, Kerry, those ideas can be put forward after. I always remember Mr. Ball saying, if you build it, they will come. Well, I am a little bit skeptical, because I also mentioned the opportunities for the cycle, what are that called now? The cycleways, you know, there's a name to it, and active travel, sorry, that's right, the active travel. There's so many opportunities here with massive amounts of money, and I do appreciate it isn't for now or this report with stage one, but if we don't start somewhere and put it in at the earliest opportunities, then it won't form part of the conversation. I mean, Annette mentioned they're having these meetings, and I do hope that these conversations will happen, because I don't want to repeat what Jamie and others have said, but passenger trains are going to be travelling up this line to be tested, empty. They're going to go back down after testing, empty. If you cannot use them for tourism or commercial use, I'd be flabbergasted. I know there's difficulties and weight bearing, but I'm sure this can form part of the whole sort of rail of excellence program, you know, and it's up to us officers, cabinet members, and the council as a whole, I believe, in lobbying Welsh Government. And the last thing I would say, what we need to also remember is that it's not Welsh Government funded, it's not Neath Talbot funded. They are partners. Welsh Government will be putting a substantial amount of money in, but it's private funding. I believe it'll be the rail industry that will be paying the lion's share of any development that we are talking about. So it's about all the partners, and I don't know if those are already. I do remember the chief exec, Stephen Phillips, was he was chair of the party or group that was with the rail industry. So I don't know if Karen have taken over that role, but I just wanted to add my bit. It's if we lose this opportunity, it'd be sacrilege. We do need to do as much as possible to make sure it happens, because it will have that economic benefits, not just for the Dillais, Neath, for Neath for Talbot as a whole. and that's the way we need to be going forward. So that's just a few points there from me. And before you respond, I will bring back in the cabinet member for some of the points I raised first. Councillor Annette Wingrave, please.
Thank you, Chair. You are right, Steve. There will be lots of private money probably brought into this, and this is a very, very early stage. And I think once it starts rolling, there'll be a lot more interest in it. But Welsh Government will have quite a large part to do with this. And of course, we do have a certain amount of control with powers through the planning. But I want to go back to what you said about the skills and training. This group that I sit on is already talking to the colleges about skills and training, because you're right enough, construction will play the first part, but when it comes to the actual jobs to take these skills on, we will need to train people, and they've acknowledged that and are already talking to the colleges. Right?
Thank you, Annette. There we are. Kerry?
I've got not a lot more to add, Chair, but I can see Simon's got his hand up, and maybe Simon might just comment a bit more about skills and training. But the only point I would make, Chair, is that clearly everyone around this screen, and indeed those who are involved in the project, know that the potential that this project has. It's transformational in its size, its significance, and I think we need to obviously take advantage of that and build upon the undoubted success it will bring locally. So yeah, perhaps Simon would like to comment a bit more. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for that, Kerry. Annette, is that a legacy, or do you want to come back?
Legacy, sorry, Steve.
That's fine. Simon, please. Simon Brennan.
Thank you, Chair. I think you're right to identify the skills issue, and that is something that needs to be addressed not only in Neath, Talbot, but across the whole of the South West Wales region, and that's part of the City Deal agenda. I think the key thing for me is that this what it provides within the county borough are aspirational jobs, and I think previously we've probably lost some of our people because there aren't those types of jobs available within the region. So having well-paid aspirational jobs is a key attractor, and I think it also provides some ambition for people as they come through the educational system. We do need to address skills and training. That is very clear across a range of different items. We cover it in the Supporting Innovation Low Carbon Growth Programme, because we know in the renewables industry we'll need to improve skills there. So it is across the board and needs to be identified. And the other point I was going to raise in terms of the jobs is obviously as the project develops, it's identifying where the supply chain opportunities are for companies that either exist within the region already or within Neath Talbot, or that could be established to try and feed into that process. I think that is it's something that we're looking at already in terms of the Avon Forest resort to see where we can develop our supply chains and where we can grow local jobs to support these facilities, which are major investments within our valley communities.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Simon. That's very interesting, and thank you for your response. Councillor Nigel, please.
Oh yeah, Steve, thanks for letting me come back in. I should have briefly say, really, building on some of what you said about lobbying and what Jamie Evans mentioned earlier. Of course, there's a ban at consequential for High Speed 2, which is an England-only railway line. It's the biggest UK infrastructure project since the 19th century. It's going to cost around £100 billion. Scotland will get 10% of that, which is 10 billion, and Northern Ireland will get 2.5% of that because it's population related. We should, to have parity with the other three parts of the UK, be receiving around about £5 billion, sorry. So that's a massive amount of money that could fund numerous infrastructure projects in Wales, and this wouldn't cost £1 billion to do. We should be having parity with the rest of the UK. So in terms of lobbying, I think we could focus on that. Unfortunately, the last time I looked at Christina Rees and Stephen Kinnock's record, they hadn't asked any questions about the HS2 ban at consequential. There's room for improvement here. And I want to get that in, Steve. That's fine. This is the UK government. And we need to get that to be doing better.
Oh, I'm
Thank you.
not suggesting, no, that's fine, Nigel. I'm not suggesting that you don't raise the point and lobbying. I think as an authority, we need to be doing that. You're quite right. Let's get the money we need and then let's put it to the projects that will make a difference. I've always said about the valleys communities have always been sort of left behind, certainly have by politicians of all parties really. But anyway, thank you for that. That's quite important. Okay, I see no further hands. This item is for information only, so therefore we just need to note the report. Thank you for all your questions and officers for your responses. So if I take you on to the next item now, this is where the pre-decision, sorry, is somebody? No, yeah. This is a pre-decision scrutiny. We now move to the Cabinet Board agenda where we have our pre-decision scrutiny. If I take you back there, the first item that we decided to scrutinise is the economic recovery plans, which are on pages 7 to 154. This is a report for a decision. I believe the officers taking this report are Simon and Andrew Collins. I don't believe Andrew's here today, Simon, is he? So it's you, is it?
It is me, so Chair. Andrew is here, in case you have any questions.
He's here, right.
Yeah.
He's so quiet. Oh, yeah, I see him now. He's so quiet, see. So over to you then, Andrew, for anything you would wish to add before I go to questions.
Well, I'll just run through it quickly, Chair.
Yeah.
Which is effectively got three plans on there. The South West Wales Regional Economic Delivery Plan, the Regional Economic Framework, and the NPT Economic Delivery Plan. It's about the adoption of those three strategies. Apologies that obviously there's an awful lot of detail and information within those reports and those documents, which is obviously necessary. It is a reaction to the significant change that's been going on in the last few years. Obviously, Brexit and also the pandemic has caused major issues within the economies, and it is time to refresh the older documents that we've had. So the first one, the Regional Economic Delivery Plan for South West Wales, effectively is developed by SQW, some consultants in conjunction with the region itself. It's an analysis of the evidence base, looks at the strategic policy context, aims and objectives, development then, and then looking at the action plan thereafter. The economy is going to develop significantly over the next 10 years. We've got a lot of very large scale projects in place. Obviously, we just had a large discussion around GCRE, but there are numerous other potential projects across the region, I think, and particularly within Neath Talbot, that will hopefully shape and develop our economy over that period. The following document then is the Regional Economic Framework, which is co-produced with our colleagues in Welsh Government, but is predominantly sort of Welsh Government led, if you like. And that's a sort of framework for the regional approach, promoting collaborative working really across obviously South West Wales, but also across Wales generally to develop the Welsh economy. And then the third document then is our local response, if you like, to the change that we've had over the last few years. And it's the NPT Economic Delivery Plan, which looks at more of a local context, items that are specific to NPT, how we develop our economy, and crucially, as I say, develops the action plan. I think we're in a little bit of a different position in NPT in terms of the region. Obviously, we're the furthest east, and whilst we have very, very good working relationships with our colleagues in South West Wales, and it's a very mature region and working together to develop our economy. Also, you know, there are a lot of things that we do with colleagues east as well, and I think we have to remember that and to look to develop that as we go forward. Sort of four key areas in the local delivery plan around an entrepreneurial and resilient economy, developing our SMEs, etc. Transformational investment and change. As we've mentioned, a lot of strategic sites, big projects coming forward. We talked about GCRE. Potentially there's the Avon Forest Park, potential around Talbot Harbour and the docks there. and what that might be going forward. A lot of plans with ABP. So there's a lot to look forward to, I think, and a lot of potential growth. But we also want to focus on what a sort of a quality and connected place Neath Port Talbot is. We have very good road links. As we mentioned earlier, whilst we would ideally like to have some more links up into the valleys in terms of our rail links, we are served by a major rail line as well throughout the county borough, throughout the sort of the coastal part, Neath and Port Talbot. So, I mean, that is a benefit. But also in terms of the sort of living environment that we got within Neath Port Talbot, we have good quality, affordable housing, lots to see and do, and the coastal belt, obviously, up into the valleys and the mountains there, and that's part of our tourism push, which you've all seen the website and the documentation on, and I think that's to persuade both inward investment and our existing businesses that it's a good place to either establish yourself or develop your company. And then the report also talks about our future skills and opportunities. As we've mentioned, our skills base needs improving. And I think to some extent, as I said earlier, having aspirational jobs will help that. But we've had a number of employers looking to locate here, and I think having that ambition to move towards working for those sorts of employers will give perhaps both our younger people and also people who want to retrain that ambition to go and apply for those jobs. So in the action plan, as you can imagine, it's probably more or less what you would expect around supporting local businesses, around business support, etc., creating an environment that encourages inward investment and the diversification of the local economy, delivering support to encourage new startups. We do very well around that, and also critically helping them grow, helping them survive and grow. Delivering an effective employability service, which is obviously we've got the two strands running within the council at the moment, and I think we've ambitions around unifying that and making sure we've got a good coherent approach for all those people who are seeking employment. Delivering an effective community benefits program. We've had very good success with that over the years. Claire Roach, who works within Andrew's section, has done some fantastic work especially around the construction projects and getting people who are quite far away from the employment scene back into work and doing well. We talk about reviewing the council's procurement programme. Obviously, as an organisation, we have a very large spend, and it's seeing how more of that can be spent locally and encouraging businesses and to be able to do work for Neath Port Talbot and within Neath Port Talbot. And then lastly, around using communication channels to inform businesses about opportunities for them within Neath Port Talbot or in the South West Wales region. So there's three strategies there. As I say, I think the older documentation that had been in place for a while needed to be refreshed, and I think that this provides a very good structure around how we can grow the economy over the next 10 years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Simon. That's a very good update for us. I'll go to the order it was in the pre-briefing. So, Councillor Sean Percy with the first question, then, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Simon, for introducing the reports. I suppose there's three lengthy strategies there, isn't there? I think I said to you in a seminar recently, I do quite like a plan and a strategy. It's nice to have everything written down where you can really get your teeth into it. So yeah, I think there's some really good stuff in these documents, and I think specifically, getting some of these issues, long-term ones, supply of industrial premises, it's baked into all of those documents, and there's some action plans. To propose, I suppose, more intervention, isn't there, to bring those sites forward in the towns and in the valleys as well. And I did spot as well an aspiration to bring the Baglan Bay site into public ownership, which I think is really exciting to see in the action plan as well. I think that'll be the kickstart that site needs, because I think that's stagnated now for quite a while, isn't it? So I've got a couple of sort of specific questions. One is in terms of the regional plan. There was a talk about regional investment fund. That seems like it's a little bit far away at the moment in terms of coming together. But are we looking to or considering pooling resources regionally to start to deliver on any of those aspirations in the regional plan? And if you don't mind, Chair, if I could just, I'll ask a few other questions, because I've got another one or two here as well. And the other one was in terms of the plans, are they going to be used as an evidence base in terms of feeding into the LDP review? Because obviously they're going to need to align, and I'm thinking in particular around economic development. There's a lot of reference, quite rightly so, about valley communities and making sure that they get extra intervention to make sure we can, business space, that sort of thing. We've acknowledged that in the plan, and I see Kerry's popped up on my screen. But I just think if this can be used as an evidence base actually in developing the planning policy, then we're on to something there. There was a lot of diagrams, and I wasn't quite sure which thing was feeding what, so I would appreciate a bit of clarity on that, because I think this could be quite a powerful document to feed the planning policy. And there was one last thing I wanted to just flag up, which was the sort of, in terms of town centres and revitalising town centres, there's a sort of town centre first kind of comment in there, and I know planning policy as well broadly reflects that. I just wanted to flag up that I would say that I don't think all partners are on board with that approach entirely, and I think I can think of an example locally where NHS services are being relocated to an out of town location, and it wasn't quite extensive enough to be captured by planning policy. But perhaps if there's a bit more work with partners to really get them on board with the idea, I just wonder if there's still a bit more to do on that, because it's going to be key, isn't it, to transforming town centres and utilising empty buildings and bringing people in. And I just feel like not all external partners are 100% on board with that idea yet. Thanks for that, Chair.
Thank you for that,
Okay.
Sean. Between you, Simon and Kerry, I'm sure you can respond together on the point they do overlap. But I'll come to you first, Simon.
Okay, thanks, Chair. In terms of the sort of regional investment question, obviously that depends on funding. And as you know, there's a lot of work ongoing around the CJCs, etc., and having a whether that's a regional economic development approach or whether it's individual. But I mean, what I would say on that is that we have worked extremely well with our colleagues across South West Wales for as long as I've been involved in it, and I think every year it matures and gets slightly better. And it's a pretty grown-up approach to how we deal with investment, I think. And we've talked, as I said, in the Support and Innovation Low Carbon Growth about developing the supply chain in the renewables industry, for example, and we recognise that's not going to happen within Neath Talbot alone. That's about involving companies across the region, and whether it's east or west. I mean, not all of our residents work within Neath Talbot. A lot of them will travel out, so it is about providing those opportunities wherever we can. I think we'll have to see how the money gets split as we go forward. Obviously, things have changed with UK Gov around how that money is allocated. Previously, a lot of it flowed through Welsh Government. Whether that continues to be the case or not, I guess we'll have to wait and see. In terms of the LDP and the plans and making sure this feeds into the LDP, obviously we've got officers who are working with Kerry's team to try and set out the aspirations for the LDP from our point of view, from economic growth, etc. And that is something that we'll continue to do. And there's again a very good working relationship, and Kerry will come back in on that in a second. And the third point then around town centres first, I totally understand your point, and it's something that has come up many times, I think, within various boards and within cabinet members' briefing and cabinet around the town centre first approach. That is a funding approach from Welsh Government where they've wanted to focus on the town centres. We have said that there are other areas that, you know, need funding too, because it sort of more focuses on the bigger town centres, which tend to be around the coastal belt for us. And I think that will change as we go forward. We're doing a piece of work on the tertiary town centres at the moment, the smaller ones, if you like, and then probably follow that with a piece of work on the 3 bigger town centres in Neath, Talbot and Pontardawe, obviously. But we are focusing on the smaller ones first to make sure that we can take advantage of any funding that comes forward on that.
Thank you, Simon. Kerry, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just quickly come back on the question about the LDP. Yes is the simple and straightforward answer to that. It's probably worth flagging that one of the tests of soundness that the team will have to address is, does it fit? And what that means is that does the plan, does the strategy, does the policies within the LDP fit with the national strategies, any regional strategies that sit over and above it? So, you know, we need to make sure that all these documents, all these strategies are talking to each other, and it's very much part and parcel of bringing forward an evidence base. And whilst these documents won't sort of fit directly as part of the evidence base, they will nevertheless be very much aligned with it. And what the team will do is as we did last time, a topic paper will be produced on the full range and scope of topics that the LDP will cover. Obviously, the economic development, retail will be very much part of that suite of topics that the LDP will have to address. So yes, that's a bit of a long-winded answer, but in short, it's very much a yes. And you know, the LDP review will absolutely have to align with these important overarching regional documents. Thank you,
Kerry. Sean, all right?
Yeah, no, thanks for that, both. I think just quickly on the town centre issue that Simon came back on, I think the sort of specific element I picked up from the report was the securing additional public sector uses, and I just feel like not all parts of the public sector are kind of on board with that idea yet. They just seem to still be, in some cases, maybe picking an easy solution to house a service rather than perhaps fitting in with that national framework and that idea that we need to revitalise town centres. And I just feel like there's a bit more work to get everyone on board with that, because some of these key services can have more of an impact than we can in terms of ours.
Simon, I think you agree with that. If I want to come back.
I mean, you know, we can try and persuade as much as we possibly can, and we will point out all the benefits for them doing these things. Ultimately, if it's not our final decision, it's not our final decision, but all we can do is try and make it as easy as possible for them to make that decision and go into the town centres.
Thank you for that, Simon. Councillor Hugh James, then, please.
Well, thank you both, Kerry, Andrew and Simon. Questions to you, really. It's a very detailed report. I've looked at it and it's vitally important. One of my questions, but you've already answered that, both, is that it's over at least a 10-year period. My question to you is really, have we got the support? We as a council are keen to do this, and we're competing against other authorities. Is the link up strong enough at the moment, or will it be strengthened to make sure we get this funding, or at least we have a foot in the door at Neath Talbot? And also the other question I've got, and I think you covered this, Simon, really earlier on in another report. Training is vitally important to get jobs in, and we want to keep people here. An example being, I was talking to the university the other day at Swansea. Now that's a university of excellence with engineering, and it's amazing that the number of students who come here like this area so much, they want to stay and they never seem to get the jobs. So my question to you, in this infrastructure and with the LTP with Kerry, is there a big emphasis on training and looking at the skills we've got and the facilities we've got in Neath Talbot?
Yes, I think the answer to that, Councillor James, is that we are very mindful of the skills issue at the moment, and it will be addressed across the region and within Neath Talbot itself, because you're right, we want to keep the best people here and provide jobs that make them want to stay effectively. I think Andrew might want to add something to that.
Yeah, I'll bring Andrew in then. Andrew Collins, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. One of the reasons that we did the local report was that, as Simon said, we're sort of lumped in a little bit with South West Wales because of our geographical location, and we're far more aligned to other authorities to the west and the north, such as Procurement, Neath, etc. And so, whilst the South West Wales regional report is useful, it is a bit overarching, and therefore we required SQW to do a specific job work for us, which focused on Neath Talbot, because that brings out some of the statistics that are a little bit concerning, to say the least. But for example, it's estimated that in the next 5 years, half of the jobs in our region are going to require qualifications of NVQ level 4 and above. Now, at the moment, the region is at 35%, but we in Neath Talbot are lagging behind on 28%. So if you take us out of that average, the rest of the region is probably pushing towards 40%, and we're still on 28%. So that highlights to us, you know, a real urgent need for us to upskill our young people and others within the schools and college systems to prepare them for those future jobs. So that's just one example of the focus for us, Councillor James, and why we've commissioned that specific report for Neath Talbot. Another quite alarming thing to come out of the report is that most of our households who are considered to be on low income are actually in work, and that's wrong. You know, we've got to do something about that. We've got to provide better paid jobs for people and residents of Neath Talbot.
All right, Hugh.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for that, Andrew. And you were very honest coming out with those facts as well. Thank you, team. And that's vitally important what you've just said. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I don't see any further hands up from members. Just one quick question from myself, if I may, Simon. Oh, wait a minute, Nigel wants to come back first. Okay, Councillor and Nigel.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I'd just like to say that I think Neath Talbot is a great place for small businesses. We've got a strong cultural identity here, and I think it can be built on. I think we've got a great regeneration team. I'd just like to see a little bit more capacity. With the town centre first, I'd like to see a bit more cultural stimulation. The footfall's poor. I think cultural places could stimulate a lot more footfall. You know what my thoughts on the Princess Royal Theatre, or theatres everywhere actually, on the Banksy. I think we could have had a gallery based around that, but I've get a lot of footfall. And of course our bus station could do with some improvement. I also want to say something about, like, I was surprised to see that we in the coastal belt of NPT, we're really nearly on a par with Swansea Central in terms of the jobs that we create. In my ward, I think Baglan Industrial Park is bursting. I think we put too much development on there. We've just had flood alerts again in the last week. So I suppose that's a question for the LDP really, but I think we've maxed out in certain places, and some of the industrial developments should be taken further afield. That's my opinion. And also on the renewable energy and being carbon neutral, again, I feel like Aberafan has been ignored in this. You know, we've got a short-term operating reserve that's 50 megawatts. It's gas powered. It's only 40% efficient. So perhaps this isn't the best forum for me to express my views on that. I've written to Kerry in the past, and his answers have always been robust. So I'm probably best placed to write to Kerry outside of you. But
yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. But in terms of town centre first, I do hope that some of the members going forward, whoever the members may be in the town centres, are included on a part of some of the decision making. I think we've got a lot of opinions on what is best for our town centres. So thanks for the report.
Yeah, thank you, Nigel. I don't know if there's any questions in there, Simon, you want to pick up on, or you, Kerry, but if you do, by all means, yeah.
Well, I think on the energy point, obviously that's a big focus for us going forward. I mean, we'll talk about the South West Wales Regional Energy Strategy in a second, but you know, if you look at our City Deal programme, the Homes as Power Stations, about decarbonisation of the domestic programme in South West Wales, and then on the supporting innovation, low carbon growth, that's entirely focused really on decarbonising industry. So I think there's an awful lot of focus from us as an organisation around not only what we do ourselves, and we've got our decarbonisation and renewable energy strategy that focuses on what we're doing, I suppose, but also around how we decarbonise our industry and our domestic situation. So, you know, I think it's something that we have a huge amount of interest in and are putting a lot of effort and into as well.
Thank you, Simon. Kerry, was there anything that you wanted to pick up on that he mentioned? Are you okay?
Not directly at this meeting. I mean, I'm more than happy to have further discussion with Councillor Hunt in terms of the store and indeed LDP review. And I'll just repeat what I've said many times to members. You know, please, you know, engage with the local planning policy team who are heading up that piece of work. And as I said, the more members engage with that process, the better. So I'd certainly urge members to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Kerry. Thank you for that. Okay, just very briefly from me then, on the economic recovery plans, I mean, three parts of the documentation. I just wanted to know, you know, how will the cost of living crisis, the doubling of energy, and I know we got the South West Wales Regional Energy Strategy next, but I think it still fits into here. How is it going to affect or hamper these three economic recovery plans going forward? Because affordable housing, you know, and social housing, again, this overlaps into the LDP. It's something that that developers have found a way around, and as both of you would be aware now, I think they've just announced the average age for anybody to get their first home is up to about 35. With mum and dads at the banks, they stay at the homes of their mums and dads because they just simply can't afford a property. Property prices have escalated over the last 6 months or longer to an absolute ridiculous, and you can't blame the person who wants to sell, but that's really trapping first-time buyers. So I just wonder, because again, because it's a planning application that's gone, and I'm not predetermining or anything, but we have this issue where people are building and others are buying properties that only they can afford for second homes, for tourism and for their own personal use, where they're empty for most of the year. I think, have we got anything in an economic recovery situation through ourselves and through planning and the LDP that we can sort of start to address social housing and first-time homes that are affordable? I just wondered, because I couldn't pick up that too much within the reports, really. So that's just the one little item that I noticed that I think is important for anybody going forward, Simon. Thank you.
If I pick up on the energy part of it first, Chair, and then I don't know if Kerry might have something he wants to say around the policy side of it and the housing side, is obviously the issues around rising energy costs are affecting businesses across the whole of the UK and will do, and also across Europe, because some of the countries are more exposed to the ongoing problems in Ukraine than perhaps the UK is. But I think the key thing is that whilst that is a focus at the moment around energy cost, the key focus needs to be around decarbonisation generally. There is an irony, unfortunately, and it's not one that we wanted to have, is that as energy costs rise, of course, so it makes the decarbonisation, the renewable energy option, far more attractive for two reasons, really. One is around security of supply, and the other one is around that it just becomes a lower payback because your energy costs, unfortunately, are very high. So I think it's something that, as you say, we're promoting in a very big way, and we'll try and work with our businesses as much as we can to make sure that they're best placed to decarbonise and to, if possible, become self-sufficient. As you know, we've just finished the technology centre, which will be a carbon neutral building, and in fact we'll probably generate more power than we need in the majority of situations there and turn some back into the grid. So I think those sorts of projects, whilst they're pathfinders at the moment, are critical to changing the way that we operate generally. I don't know if Kerry wants to add something on the housing policy side.
Thank you for that. Yeah, no worries, Kerry, please.
Yeah, it was just quickly to add, Chair, that again, LDP review, one of the key pieces of evidence base will be a reassessment of housing need. Part of that will clearly relate to affordable housing. The Welsh Government have relatively recently issued, further advice and guidance on the need for local planning authorities to allocate sites for 100% affordable housing. So that's again something that the LDP team will be looking at as part of the process going forward. So yeah, as I said, there's a lot of work ahead in terms of bringing the LDP forward, and as I said, it does cover such a wide range and scope of issues, and again, it'll be important for members to be very, very much part and parcel of those discussions going forward.
Thank you, Kerry. I agree with you, and I certainly look forward to working with you. And if we are all here, that is. But yeah, no, you're right, and it's interesting to hear that affordable housing is part of the Welsh Government's plans, and for us to then look and try and implement going forward. Councillor Jamie Evans, then, please.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Yeah, it's just picking up on a point that you made regarding second homes. Obviously, we're seeing a massive second home crisis across Wales, mainly affecting areas like Pembrokeshire, Ceredigion, Gwynedd and Conwy. But, we're not exempt from this in Neath Talbot. Luckily, I've been fortunate enough to buy my own home, but a lot of my friends in other parts of Wales aren't so fortunate, can't afford to live in their own communities, and even my mates down here are starting to see the rising cost of living affect them, being unable to purchase their own home. What do we currently have in place to combat? I know it's less than 1%, I believe, of properties in Neath Talbot are second homes, but what do we have in place to stop the spread of second homes and things like Airbnb, because that causes massive problems not only in Wales but places like Venice where there's massive protests. I want to see my town, my community thriving with people that live here full time. I don't want to see places like Aberavon Beach become a ghost town for 6 months of the year. I don't want to see areas like Portneuf Fechan become overrun with houses that aren't lived in for 6 months of the year. It's all well and good people being able to afford to buy houses in these beauty spots, but when that's at the expense of local families, that's not right. And we need to ensure that we aren't in the same position as Gwynedd or Ceredigion are in 10, 15 years' time. We need to ensure that there is good, affordable local supply of homes. So I'm just wondering what we have in place and what more we can do to combat this crisis, as we've seen in the Hawli Fyw Adra campaign from Cymdeithas yr Iaith.
Thank you, Jamie. Anybody want to pick this up, Simon or Kerry?
Kerry goes first. I'll join after Kerry.
There we are. Go on, Kerry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We've not got any policies in place at the moment, and being honest, I don't think we've got an issue locally. I mean, you've mentioned some other authorities there in terms of, Pembrokeshire, Gwynedd, the sort of the more rural authorities that have perhaps a bigger issue. I know that the Welsh Government have recently conducted a consultation on second homes and holiday lets. And part of that consultation, or what they're seeking views on, is whether whether the Welsh Government actually change or introduce primary legislation, or indeed just leave it for secondary legislation. They've also looked at suggesting to amend the use class order so that you actually do need plan permission to actually, utilise a property as a second home or holiday let. It'll remain to be seen what comes from that consultation, but again, it'll be part and parcel of the LDP review, which we will be looking at what the evidence is telling us and showing us, and ultimately then whether there will be a need for a policy to address that particular issue. But at this stage, it would be wrong of me to give you any definitive view until we have sight of how that evidence develops coming forward.
Thank you, Kerry. Simon, do you want to add?
I was just going to add, Chair, I think we also have to be mindful that the world has changed a little bit over the last few years and is starting to change even more. Traditionally, second homes have been often people, living and working within some of our major cities, who have looked for somewhere to go on the odd weekend, etc., and perhaps a couple of weeks in the summer. And that's why communities have struggled, because those properties have, as we've mentioned, been vacant for large parts of the year. But I think as people's work life has changed slightly, I wonder whether that will also change in terms of the approach for people on second homes, and whether in fact their second home becomes their first home, with them having a small place within the city where they will go to occasionally in terms of work. And I think we have to try and work out the benefit around that. Then is that around people who have very well paid jobs, being within our communities for sort of 80 or 90% of the time and going into the city, be it London or wherever it might be, for a small period, and how much sort of wealth they can generate within the community. I think it's something that we just have to try and understand as it changes. And part of that will be around around digital connectivity within all of our communities, because I think that will be key to growth within a lot of our communities over the next couple of years, is making sure, we're all sat within our own areas on a digital meeting. I think somebody had suggested this even 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It wouldn't have happened. It would have said it was impossible, and we all would have stood by and said, yeah, we need to go into the chamber, we need to do that meeting there. Well, I think the world has changed for an awful lot of people now. I mean, I attended a court case at the beginning part of this week on a hybrid. So whilst there were people within the courtroom in London, most of us were sat around the whole of the UK in our various locations, feeding into that court case. So I think the world has changed an awful lot, and whether that can have a beneficial impact on our local economies and housing, and whether it changes the second home ownership equation, I don't know. I think it's just something that we have to look at, because what we have to remember is we've got an awful lot of places in Wales that are very nice to live in. I mean, Pembrokeshire has always been a second home. There's always been a second home issue in Pembrokeshire, isn't there? Causing problems in some of the communities. And whether you'll have more incomers, if you like, into some of those communities, but who spend more of their time there than they do elsewhere, I don't know. It's just a point I was sort of thinking about the other day, Chair.
Thank you for that, Simon. Jamie, okay?
Yeah, I take on board what you've just said, Simon, but and Kerry, but I do think it's something that we need to perhaps brace ourselves for, because I was with my mate in Carnarvon the other day, who's from the Twtl area of the town, which is very similar to where I live in Neath, terraced houses. He said now there's 2 or 3 Airbnbs on every street is pushing local families out. And if somewhere like Twtl, which, no disrespect to anyone from Twtl that might have an interest in watching a Neath Talbot Regeneration meeting, it's not the nicest area of Carnarvon. But, there's still people that want to buy properties there because it's in a sought after location of North Wales. Look at what we've got around here. There's no saying that, the tourism industry couldn't boom in Neath Talbot, and areas of the Avon Valley become like that. Areas of the Neath Valley become like that. I do think we've got to put things in place now to protect our communities for the future. That's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Jimmy. Is that the legacy hand, Simon, or did you want to come back?
No, it's a legacy hand, sorry, Chair.
Okay, that's okay. Final word, we've gone well on this item now. So a final word to Councillor Percy then, please.
All right, thanks, Jay. I suppose I'm a bit late coming in now. Kerry stole my thunder. The consultation only closed 2 days ago on the proposed changes to the use classes order for second homes and Airbnbs. So I think we've got to sit tight and wait for what comes of that. But it might be helpful, Kerry, if you can keep an eye on it for us and maybe disseminate some information when we do get a response from Welsh Government and how that might affect us. Because just briefly, the proposal suggests that areas would have to designate specific localities where changing the use from a permanent dwelling house to a short-term let or a second home would be restricted. So if that does come in, we would have to decide which areas we would want to restrict that use. So there would be a bit of work for us to do. But who knows how long that will take the Welsh Government to come back with something. So, yeah, I think we just sit tight. Thanks, Chair.
Good point, John. Okay, this item is for a decision. So if I take you to page 12, we need to approve on the adoption of the 3 documents listed. So can I have somebody to propose and second that we take to Cabinet for approval in their entirety? So the 3 documents, as I stated. So a proposer, please.
I move, Chair.
Thank you. And a seconder. Did you get that, Charlotte?
I heard a mover, but I haven't heard a seconder.
I seconded it.
Oh, there we are, Sean. Can I check that everybody's happy with the recommendation? Yeah, there we are. That goes then, Charlotte, to Cabinet, as stated. If I move on to the next item. Sorry, who was that?
It was me. I just said thanks. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Charlotte. I thought it was a bit of feedback, or I missed something. Okay, if I move on to the next item, which is the South West Wales Regional Energy Strategy. This is on pages 155 to 240. Again, a decision report. And the officer again is Simon Brennan. So back to Simon, please.
Yeah, apologies for that, Chair. Yeah, this is, again, another regional strategy, which is the energy strategy for South West Wales. Effectively, this was commissioned by Welsh Government, supported by the Welsh Government Energy Service, but developed by the South West Wales region. It sets out our pathway to net zero through developing strategy, workshops, and then through to the action plan. It effectively focuses on industry, the domestic situation, and transport. So it's a bit of an holistic approach to the energy problem. I mean, obviously at the moment, as we mentioned in the last report, energy is pretty high up the agenda for the majority of people, whether it's on a domestic situation or in industry. I'm sure if they're right with the price of oil going to the levels that it is, it will impact on our transport situation as well. And this is going to affect everything that we do and the cost of everything that we buy. So it is a really critical area for us, I think, over the next couple of years. So really, we're looking at energy efficiency, energy degeneration, and the decarbonisation of both heat and transport. As I said, there are 4 themes. Housing is picked up by NPT. Then you've got the commercial end of the world then, which Carmarthen are going to lead on. And then we've got renewables with Pembrokeshire and transport with Swansea. And given the sort of the brief of the economic development, jobs, etc., what we'll be looking at is how we gain some benefit out of the decarbonisation as well, by making sure that we're well placed to take advantage of all those new types of jobs that will be coming forward within the renewable industry, both in terms of the supply chain and manufacture, which we have a very good manufacturing base within Neath, Talbot, but also with looking at the ongoing installation and maintenance, etc., of those products. So it's really, if possible, Chair, to see about getting it adopted, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that, Simon. Again, I'll take them in the order that they were asked at scrutiny. So, Councillor Sean Percy first, then, please.
Thanks, Chair. No, thanks, Simon, for introducing the report again there. Yeah, generally speaking, I suppose the plan is quite exciting. I was quite pleased to see that the sort of proposed growth areas and renewables are offshore wind and solar rather than biomass, for example, which I'm not entirely keen on. It's still got a local, carbon impact. So that was quite reassuring actually to see that kind of baked into the plan. But my first question, I suppose, it might be one for Kerry again, I'm afraid. But obviously, in terms of energy infrastructure, the DNS arrangements are in place, which sort of take energy planning applications out of our hands and into the hands of Welsh Government. So is this document going to inform Welsh Government's decision on DNS applications to a degree? Do we know that? I'm trying to sort of understand what its value is in terms of the decision making there. But I'll get to the rest of my other point first, perhaps. But I'm just trying to see what the status of that document is in terms of somebody coming forward with a plan or proposal that may deviate from this strategy. Do we have a parallel planning document, perhaps? Yeah, so if Kerry can give me some insight on that, that would be really helpful.
Shall I deal with that now, Chair, or I'm happy to?
If you jot them down, if Sean gets them all, we can come to officers then, and then we can complete that. So to save back and forth. Sean, you carry on with your questions.
So my next point is a bit long and convoluted, I'm afraid, and a bit technical. So apologies to Simon on this one. It's probably not something you're going to be able to answer, but I'd be appreciative if we go away and try and clarify the point. So, we've got existing carbon generating assets locally, of course. And Nigel's already mentioned the store, and this is going to form the basis of my question, which is, for example, the store, the short-term reserve sites. The principle behind those is that the claim is that they are backing up renewable energy and providing stability to the grid. So in the spiel, when they put their plans in, they talk about those standby generating stations as being a necessity to renewable energy. Now, obviously, reading the report, it looks like there's a sort of shift from kind of the supply side response strategy, so short-term increase in supply, to a demand side response, so reducing demand, battery storage, etc., rather than the sort of carbon intensive short-term generators, which there's one in my ward, there's a few others dotted about the county. Now, I can't see any specific reference, but I can infer from the plan that that's the direction of travel. But I would really appreciate some clarity on that point, because obviously the question I've asked to Kerry around where does this plan sit with the DNS arrangements, and obviously the points I've made before, when these applications do come in, or if a developer wants to build one of these sites, if it isn't in accordance with this plan, then does that have some weight? Because I'm quite concerned. Obviously, we've got a few of these dotted around now. I'd be really pleased if this plan has enough status and weight, and if my reading of it is correct, that we've moved away from that approach. Because obviously, even if those, you can make a case that a store site can support a larger renewable project. The compromise is carbon emissions in a local area, which I don't think is a fair compromise, is it? It's not a fair swap. So if you could go away and get some clarity on that technical point, I'd really appreciate it, because the other thing is, obviously, we've got a degree of influence in terms of the detail of the delivery of this plan, regionally. So if we can feed that in, I'd be really pleased. Thanks, Chair. I hope that made sense, Simon.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sean. I'll go to Kerry first on the first part, and then I'll come to you, Simon. Kerry?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, if I'm honest, Councillor Percy, I'll probably would prefer to check and come back, but I would certainly hope that when the DNS obviously sits, the decision making sits with Welsh ministers, you would very much hope and expect that such documents and strategy would be a material consideration in their determination of that application. Obviously, with DNS applications, I mean, the local planning authority would submit what's called a local impact report, and within that submission, we could make suitable reference as appropriate to such overarching strategic sort of regional documents as part of that submission. But I'll certainly check and come back to confirm that is the case. But I would expect it certainly to be part of the decision-making process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kerry. Simon, then, please.
Well, I got the difficult question, I think, Chair.
Very
the energy. I mean, my sort of take on the energy market, which is, obviously I'm not an energy market specialist, but it is incredibly complex in the way that the supply and demand are met, and there have been various strategies in the past, and as you say, the short-term reserve are a part of that and continue to be at this stage. How that works out as the shift towards renewables increases, I'm not sure. I mean, as you say, batteries have improved and continue to improve immeasurably every year. If you think about the process, I suppose, from the very first mobile phones, which were, the size of a house brick, to where we are now and what phones can do, etc. And that a big part of that is around battery technology. And that's the similar, I suppose, in the world in terms of cars and in domestic situation, but also will filter through to the housing situation as well, and how energy is stored and reused. As you know, we looked at the potential for generating hydrogen, for example, from the technology centre, and then turning it back into electricity to deal with those areas where we weren't producing enough at that particular point. So I think there's various different things that'll happen over the next few years, and there'll be people who are far cleverer than I who will be dealing with it and setting out that sort of strategy, if you like. And perhaps if Councillor Percy is keen enough, we can probably set up a meeting and perhaps get somebody to go through it with us from perhaps the Welsh Government Energy Service, who are a bit more into that side of the world.
Yeah, thank you for that, Simon. Sean, I'll come back to you then.
Yeah, no, I'd appreciate that, and I think it may provide me. I hope it will provide me with some comfort if I've interpreted what's there correctly. But yeah, if you could facilitate something like that, Simon, that would be really, really helpful. Thank you.
And the only thing I would add to that, Chair, I suppose, is, I mean, obviously the issues we've been through with the power station on the energy park, and part of that is to do with the change in the energy market as well, as to whether those facilities carry on being viable or not, and ultimately the market may dictate that some of them are no longer needed as it goes forward. I think that is to say, I think that's something that we'll have to see.
Yeah, thank you for that, Simon. And maybe whichever members going forward who are sitting in this committee, maybe that could be brought back to this board and this Regeneration and Scrutiny Committee as well. That would be very interesting to know, and from those experts in the energy market field. So thank you for that. The next question is from Councillor Hugh James, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've not changed positions. I've had to recharge my battery, so I've just moved across the room. I apologise. My question to the team is really, this is a vitally important topic at the moment, looking at your report, particularly what's going on in the world at the moment. We all know what's happening in Russia. It's a very frightening situation. And we've even got people, and I'm sure you've got them in your ward as well. I've got certain elderly people who are switching off to one room because they're frightened of the amount of energy costs. My question to you, really, through you, Simon, and to Kerry and to Andrew, how robust is this committee? Are you getting the total support from the partners? It's a very serious subject. It's not going to go away. And also, are you getting the total support which is led by Welsh Government? Thank you.
No worries, Simon.
Yeah, I think there's an understanding across the board that, and particularly around, those people who are unfortunately in that position, who are choosing between heating and paying for other things they need to within their life. And I think that's why we looked at the Homes as Power Stations program, which is around Pathfinders and is around dealing with not only new builds but around retrofits, because I think it's a major issue for us going forward. And as you can see, security of supply with energy means that you get fluctuating energy prices, because as supply gets switched on and off in certain places, that makes life very difficult. And it's not for us to make any sort of political comments, particularly around this at the moment, but politics will play a huge part in energy going forward. And I think all we can do as a nation really is to try and make sure that we're as self-sufficient as we possibly can be. And I think we all, and many of us looked at the tidal lagoon, for example, as a good way of generating significant amounts of power, and it would be good to see that come forward as a viable proposition, I think, going forward. Unfortunately, with everything that we do, there are perhaps some impacts around marine ecology, etc. But I think that we have to work our way through this and not be so reliant on energy supplies that come from other countries, because it does put us in a pretty difficult position sometimes. I mean, we generate more renewables than most, I think, within Neath Talbot ourselves. And again, that comes with an impact, doesn't it? And we see a lot of the wind turbines, etc. But it's about us, I think, as well, taking advantage of some of those. We've got them here already, and how do we generate local power to serve our communities? I think there's an awful lot that can be done over the next few years, and I think it'll exercise a lot of people's minds. But certainly the choice between heating and eating, etc., as the phrase has become, needs not to be there. We need to be able to do both very clearly.
Thank you, Simon. Hugh, all right?
Yeah, thank you very much. Simon's answered that very well. Thank you very much indeed. And I'm not an alarmist. I'm normally very, very positive, but it's pretty frightening at the moment, the way we're looking at energy costs and controlled by a few people and a few big countries in the world. So I welcome the work of this strategy and committee, and it's vitally important, Chair. Thank you for letting me speak again.
No worries. Thank you, Hugh. Anybody else got anything? No? Okay, this report is for decisions. So the recommendations are on pages 160. There are 2 recommendations. So I will ask for a proposal and a seconder for them to be taken in their entirety. So can I have someone to propose? This goes to Cabinet as written, please.
Move, Chair.
Thank you. Seconder, please.
I'll second, Chair.
Can I ask everybody if they're happy with the recommendation? Anybody not? Don't see anybody. So that will go to Cabinet as with the recommendation. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Waterfall Country Park and Ride Evaluation, which is on pages 241 to 264. This is a report for decision, but just let me clear up before I go to Simon. Whilst there is a number of recommendations, it's an officer's recommendation that we approve option 2, just to clarify. And also, can I just remind members that in the private report, we have the Waterfall Country Options Appraisal. We do not want to overlap or ask questions that may be part of the private report. So I think that was made clear in the pre-briefing. So I will now move to Simon Brennan once more for this report, please. Simon.
Thank you, Chair. This report is a reaction to some of the issues that we've had up in Pontypridd in terms of the parking problems, etc., over the last few years. As you know, the local area continues to be exceptionally popular, and whilst that is great in many ways, we need to make sure that we've got the infrastructure there to try and meet the demand that's coming in, and that has caused a few problems in the locality. And so whilst we try and work on a longer term solution, one of the options was to put in a park and ride, which we did with some assistance from Welsh Government for the last summer period. And this report sets out some of the data associated with that park and ride scheme last year, but also then sets out the proposal to continue it for a further 2-year period, just so that we can trial it. I mean, obviously last year was a very different year because of the pandemic, and we appreciate that there were some issues with people wanting to use public transport, etc. But it's just one of the proposals, I think, to try and alleviate the problem that we've got up there, and to make the lives a little easier for those living within the locality.
Thank you for that, Simon. I'll go to questions then, and Councillor Sean Percy asked one in pre-briefing. Sean.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, no, this is a great scheme. You know, I visited sort of out of season on an overcast day. You know, managed to park in one of the lay-by spaces that we built a few years back, but it was still very busy, even out of season on a you know, relatively grim day. So I've always avoided it in the summer. So yeah, no, obviously looking at the data and looking at the figures, it's I think it does need a bit more time to run. Like you said, I think lots of us have been nervous about public transport during the pandemic. So I'd be really supportive of continuing the scheme, getting some more data and learning from it, how it works. Obviously, I've got to get in a little bit of my local area. I'm sure Simon would be surprised to hear me mention Aberafan Seafront, because I've had some discussions with him and other officers about, you know, how can we use schemes like this, you know, for Aberafan as well. And this is what's important. You know, we learn lessons from this. We learn about the commissioning of the bus services, about the costings, about the practicalities, and then, you know, the things that work, we can look at utilising elsewhere. And obviously we have issues in Aberafan. Peak summer is tough, and we have the same issues that residents get in Pont Neath, you know, street parking, blocking driveways, you know, safety issues. And it's not just Aberafan, of course, there's other areas as well. So I'm very supportive of continuing the scheme and gathering that data, learning those lessons, and hopefully we can see some other schemes trialled elsewhere at some point. I'm sure. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for that, Sean. Simon, I'm not sure if there's a question in there, but if you want to come back.
I think we're aware of Councillor Percy's sort of thoughts around parking in the Aberafan Beach area, and also around getting bus services in. I think, you know, it is a part of the learning curve. It will be interesting to see how domestic tourism develops over the next few years. Obviously, we've had a lot of domestic tourism in the last 2 years because of the pandemic. So it'll be interesting to see and how these things can be made viable, because whilst you can subsidise them in the initial periods, ideally they want to be pretty self-sufficient going forward. And I think that's the key issue, isn't it? Is how do we do that?
Yeah, very much so. You're quite right. Councillor Jamie Evans, please. I see you have your hand up. Oh, wait a minute, before Jamie comes in. Sean, is that legacy, or did you want to come back?
I wanted to come back only briefly just to say, in terms of the costs,
go on, then.
you know, what was reassuring is actually the costs are relatively modest for putting on this sort of thing, and for to run it. Obviously, ideally, as you say, it would be self-sufficient, but actually it was reassuring to see that it's not a huge amount of cost to implement this sort of scheme. You know, it's probably more of a logistical challenge, isn't it, sometimes, than the finances. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Jamie Evans then, please.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Yeah, again, fully supportive of Sean's comments and wanting to see this period extended. I suppose my question really is around access to the park and ride service that we've got up there. And if there's any possibility of maybe an extension down the valley to Neath. You know, I appreciate that it's a big ask, but the amount of people from Neath that go up to Pontydd Fechan is quite large. I go up there, you know, maybe twice a month, walk the dog, and it would be much easier if I could just get on a bus and try faffing around and find a parking space. And I think a lot of people would like to be able to get up there without the fuss of driving around. I know, well, I assume places like the Angel and Scood might benefit as well with more parking available for their customers. So I'm just wondering if there's any discussions that have been had with bus operators around the timetabling of services from Neath to Glynneath that could link up with our park and ride scheme up to Waterfall Country in Pontydd Fechan. Diolch.
Obviously, the service that we've got up there, which is specific around the park and ride facility, is commissioned in part by our guys who work within the public transport area. So I will take that point back to them and see whether there's any coordination. But as I think as the shuttle runs pretty frequently, hopefully it should coincide with all of the transport, all of the public transport that gets as far as Glynneath at the moment. And I think, you know, hopefully anybody who turns up there wouldn't have to wait too long before they could get on a shuttle run. I suppose the question you're asking is more about the more frequent buses, probably between Neath and Glynneath, is it? Rather than, yeah, okay. I'll take that back to Dave Griffiths, because obviously it's his part of his area of work.
All right, yeah. Yeah. Anybody else?
Diolch.
No worries. No, just briefly, Simon, just touching on what Jamie has said. I mean, it's not for this item specifically, because certainly support option 2 as the recommendation. It's more of which still falls under this committee's remit to a certain extent anyway, is the tourism aspect. Now, health and well-being, walking, active travel, I mean, it's Welsh Government's flagship as well. I just wondered sometimes going forward that we should be looking at, it's ironic really, because Powys, do we work cross council, you know, together to a certain extent. The Colbryn waterfalls there, I had to go on the old road there, it's just chock-a-block, and there's nowhere for anybody to move. They're blocking the roads off, and it's just a nightmare. Same in Pontydd, because the Delights Valley, the top of Banwyn and Oencloyn there, are a stone's throw away, and there's never ever been transport between Banwyn and Glynneath, and not just for this type of situation, but for the economic wise, for supporting each communities. And I just wondered if there was anything in our transport strategy or in our tourism strategies, or something that could be put in long term or short term going forward to join up our valley communities, where there can be economic growth and tourism and health and well-being. It's just a thought. It wasn't specifically for this, but I thought I had the opportunity to mention it, and I thought I would, because I think it's quite important listening to some of the points raised by members. So that's just something I thought was important. So I don't know if you want to I briefly come back on that, but thank you.
I think there's two sort of separate points to some extent, Chair. One is around connecting our communities. And as I say, I think that's something that, you know, I know certainly exercised Dave Griffiths' mind and how they take forward the public transport initiative. And then to some extent, the park and ride is a little bit about people coming sometimes from outside of the area, I think, and how we connect those then to the places like Pontydd Fechan and others without damaging the locality too much. It's about the impact of the tourism, really.
Yeah, no, I take that about it, and you're right. As I said, I saw Japanese, Chinese, Americans, they're all over in Colbryn, and dare I say it's probably very much the same in Pontydd Fechan, if I could say it properly. Okay, thank you, Si. As I said earlier, right, this is a report for decision. So the recommendations is on page 254, and it's the officer's recommendation to approve option 2. So can I have somebody to propose, and somebody just a second, this item to go to Cabinet, please.
I'll move, Chair.
Thank you. Second,
Chair.
yeah. Can I just ask again if everybody's happy with the recommendation? I see nobody not, so that will go to Cabinet. Okay. Next item is a scrutiny forward work programme. We'll go back now to the scrutiny agenda to look at the forward work programme. It is attached only for information and for members to note, but I'll move to Charlotte to see if she wants to add anything further. Charlotte, please.
Thanks, Chair. No, so the forward work programme is there for noting for members. I know you only have one meeting after this meeting now, which is a special meeting just to go through some other extra reports. But other than that, it's not really an opportunity to add anything on at this point because it will be closing down the meetings to enter into the pre-election period.
Thank you, Charlotte. Okay, my next item 8 is urgent items. I have no urgent items today. That'll take me to item 9 as access to meetings, as you know. So I will read out to resolve to exclude the public from the following items pursuant to section 100A, paragraph 4 and 5 of the Local Government Act 1972 and the relevant exempt paragraphs of part 4 of the Schedule 12A to the above Act. So can I please ask that all public and press in attendance now exit the meeting? And can the recording be stopped, Charlotte, please? And can you confirm